This is Tools for Nomads. Tools for Nomads is an up-close and insightful look into the lives and habits of passionate and creatively prolific people who embrace and cherish the nomadic lifestyle. Brought to you by Top Drawer. As creative professionals, we know the nomadic lifestyle is as much a mindset as it is a way of being. Visit topdrawershop.com or visit one of their dozen-plus meticulously outfitted shops in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Berkeley, Chicago, and Tokyo. topdrawershop.com. I'm Tom Pollard. I've traveled the world in search of adventure. Since 2001, I've been a member of the Explorers Club. I'm a filmmaker, mountaineer, even a sailor. I've been to the top of Everest and helped build and sailed a ship made of 2.5 million reeds from Chile to Easter Island. I almost got eaten by a mako shark. I've filmed with orcas, elk, bear. From five-star hotels to the cold, cold ground, I've visited a lot of cool places over the years, but there's a whole lot of places on the globe I've yet to experience. In 2019, I had the pleasure of traveling to Australia to do 2 Everest presentations for the Australia-New Zealand chapter of the Explorers Club, one in Melbourne, the other in Sydney. You never know who you might meet at an Explorers Club meeting. Since 1904, the club membership includes names like Sir Edmund Hillary, Neil Armstrong, Jane Goodall, oceanographer Sylvia Earle. During my presentation in Sydney, I noticed a lovely woman seated near the front. She seemed very interested in my Mount Everest stories and photographs. Afterwards, a friend whispered in my ear, "Do you know who that woman is?" I obviously didn't, and he said, "That's Valerie Taylor. She and her late husband Ron worked with Steven Spielberg in the filming of Jaws, world-renowned for their underwater photography of sharks, namely great white sharks." I was beyond intrigued, and then someone introduced himself to me. And when I picked my head up to find Valerie Taylor, she'd already left. Very recently, I became aware that Valerie Taylor is the subject of a film called Playing with Sharks, the Valerie Taylor Story. It's a National Geographic documentary that you can find on Disney+. I actually got Disney+ just so I could see this film. It's amazing. It tells the story of her life and her late husband Ron's as pioneers of underwater photography and filmmaking and their conservation efforts to protect sharks in marine areas. They were the first ever to film a great white shark underwater. Valerie was the first to hand feed a great white shark. Seriously. The 1971 film, Blue Water, White Death, features the Taylors and 2 other divers entering the water with hundreds of white-tip sharks miles out to sea. They're known as the most deadly shark. The sharks were feeding on a dead whale, and the underwater crew entered the water literally unsure if they would survive the encounter. A couple of years later, they were hired by Steven Spielberg to film underwater footage for Jaws, which would go on to become the biggest selling film of all time. One day during filming almost turned tragic when a great white shark became entangled in the wires of an underwater cage. The diver escaped just before that cage was ripped from the boat. While this was taking place, Ron was filming from underwater and Valerie from on the boat. The footage was so dramatic and terrifying that Spielberg literally rewrote a scene in the movie to incorporate the footage. And instead of the character Hooper dying, like he did in the book, Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, survives, all because of the work of the Taylors. The fear of sharks grew from the movie, and they were hunted and killed by the millions, misunderstood and maligned. The Taylors were beyond dismayed. Valerie and Ron traveled the world, appearing on television programs and news programs, telling that the fear of sharks was unfounded and that they just merely needed to be understood. Valerie and Ron filmed dozens of documentaries and films with their shark footage. In 2019, Valerie wrote her memoir called Valerie Taylor, An Adventurous Life, the remarkable story of the trailblazing ocean conservationist, photographer, and shark expert. I interviewed the one and the only Valerie Taylor, finally got to meet her from her home in Sydney, Australia last week, albeit via Zoom, and wanted to hear some of her remarkable stories and her cautionary tale about the state of the oceans on our planet today. Let me just add this caveat. The beginning of Valerie's interview is not an easy listen for conservation or environmental-minded individuals. 90% of the world's sharks are believed to have been killed. Hundreds of millions killed for shark fin soup, still a desirable dish in China. The ocean certainly is not what it was when Valerie and Ron Taylor, once world champion spearfishing hunters, first dived into the water back in the 1950s. They put their spears down and shot sharks only with their cameras for the balance of their career. Ron passed in 2012, and Valerie never stopped campaigning to save the sharks. Here's Valerie Taylor. Valerie, thank you for taking the time out. You must be in high demand these days since the film came out on Disney+.
Yes, I just can't keep track. I'm not clever on computers. And something's happened to my peaceful old age. There are so many things happening that I just can't keep track.
Amazing.
I'm not used to this. My darling husband used to handle all this sort of thing.
Your incredible film, Playing with Sharks, is moving. I was brought to tears on a number of occasions. I don't know if it had that impact on you, seeing you going back all those decades when you were first learning about all this underwater world, even going back to when you were a little girl, when you first went swimming underwater.
Yes, I've been in the film industry for probably over 50 years, well over 50 years. And unfortunately, when I watch anything to do with myself, I mentally change it. I start editing in my brain. It's not a good thing, but it was pretty correct. I think the editor did a brilliant job. It seems to be going from success to success.
Deservedly so. One of the scenes that really blew my mind was that first time you went underwater and you were mingling with all the white-tip sharks. There might have been 100 of them. And it was, I think, when you went underwater to film, you were hoping to get the first underwater footage ever of a great white. And when you dipped into the water with the white tips, none of you knew if you were actually going to survive that filming event. It was absolutely full of courage, and it was poignant and beautiful. That must have been one of the most incredible experiences of your life.
I agree, it was. It was. I stood on the deck of the catcher, the whale catcher, and I looked around and I thought I might never see the sun or the crew or this vessel again. But the four of us made the decision to go in. We had been watching the sharks for a week, and we noticed that they bumped before they bit. And then we read an article about them in the Reader's Digest where 600 people were in the water after being shot by a German submarine. This is during World War II, and how the British fought them off and survived, and the Italians, being Italians, had a different sort of personality, panicked, climbed on the boats, the rafts tipped them over, and over 200 of them were taken. And we realized if you fought them off, because the British fought them off, their officers survived. They were in the water with them, and they were yelling at them. Unfortunately, the Italian officers were taken off by the German submarine when it surfaced to look at the sinking of the ship. So that gave us the courage to think, if we fight them off, we'll make ourselves a place in the pack. And we did. And they eventually accepted us as other marine animals come to feed on the whale. And it was a strange feeling. You know, it was like going back 1,000,000 years. It was like that 1,000,000 years ago in the ocean. Hadn't changed, like a time tunnel. And something happened in my brain. I thought, I've got to survive. I suppose it was just, it's so rare for anybody to go back in time to something that hadn't changed in millions of years. And that was, to this day, very special.
And it was captured so beautifully. I looked at it and it was like a ballet that could have turned into a tragedy. And there you are, floating, hovering in the water, and these enormous sharks swimming in behind you, sometimes bumping into heads. As you said, they tap into things. It must have been pretty terrifying at first, but then when you got out and there was that scene of you out on the boat afterwards, you looked like you had dodged a bullet. And you didn't dodge a bullet. You learned a new thing for the world about sharks.
That is the most dangerous shark in the world because it has killed more people than all the other sharks put together, because it takes people in shipwrecks and when airplanes go down. It's an open ocean shark. You don't have to worry about it swimming off the beach. And there's not hardly any left now because they've been long-lined for their fins. And but they are a rather brutal, large beast. I eventually became quite fond of them. Not when I say fond of them, I'd sort of look around and say, hi guys, in my brain. And we realized that we had made ourselves a place, that they recognized us as other marine animals, and they were learning too. We were learning. I was fortunate to be in that position. Very few people were ever, that was so long ago, ever in that position to be able to try something like that, living on a whale catcher, going in the water with all those sharks, feeding on the whale, not one or two, hundreds, as far as you could see. We were 2 miles off the coast of South Africa in the Indian Ocean, and it was crystal clear. We could see as far as you can ever see underwater. And I believe it was very, very deep. And it was an experience. I've had a very fortunate life. I have another fortunate aspect. I don't get afraid. When things go wrong, I get angry. I want to fight. I want to go for it. So don't make me angry, Tom. You might get in trouble. I'll hit you over the head from Australia.
I will, if there's a fight in an alleyway and we happen to be together, you go first. So
nobody expects a little old lady to charge.
Oh, yeah. So why are sharks so important? Why is it so important for us to know now of their importance in the ocean? It seems to me that you really want the world to know about this, and I want to know too. And so what is it about them, and what can we learn from them?
They're an ancient predator. They haven't changed a great deal in millions of years. They have a place on the planet. Nature had a web of life in the ocean that was perfect. And the apex predator at that time was the shark. It had a role to perform in keeping the sick, the dying, the weak out of the water, killing them, letting only the strongest survive. And they did that for millions of years and kept the oceans healthy, kept the marine animals healthy, they played their part to perfection. Then along came the human animal, and it has a habit of not giving much thought to what it does to the planet. People don't seem to realize that nature has given us a planet that we can live on, that has everything we need as long as we take care of it. It's not progress to destroy the world that supports you. It is not. And that's exactly what we're doing. It's not progress, it's stupidity. We're cleaning out the sharks from the ocean and the fish. I don't know if it's true, but I saw on the computer actually that there are only 10% of the large pelagic fish, like tuna, left in the ocean to what there was at the end of World War II. And we're having new ways, using satellites to find where these last schools of fish are, and we're scraping them up. The problem is you have to leave the breeding aggregations alone. And sadly, I know, because in Australia we're doing it as well, they're now harvesting the breeding aggregations. Rank stupidity, but I said it before, they're free for the taking. And we are a very greedy race of animals, the humans. And if it's free and we can make money out of it, most of us have a tendency to utilize that aspect of whatever we're looking at, be it a beautiful tree that might be sold as timber, or a beautiful fish that might be sold as food, or a beautiful shark whose fins could be sold to make soup. And I'm asked all the time, do I think there's hope? There is only hope if we stop doing what we're doing, destroying the planet that supports us. Because if we destroy it, it won't support us anymore. And then what are we going to do?
So what can we do then? Is there, I mean, so you said hope, and so should we eat less fish? And, you know, I mean it. I'm being completely serious. How does one individual make a difference, especially given that in China, shark fin soup is prized so highly, and they go and they take hundreds of thousands, if not millions of sharks a year?
I've forgotten how many million a year. It can't go on. Those sharks that were in blue water white death, that you saw me around, all those white tips, oceanic white tips, they're big. They're gone. About 4 years ago, I went back and I couldn't, in 2 weeks, not one single shark in the Indian Ocean could I find. Not anything, gone. Amazing. Even the reef sharks were gone. And I only had a little bit of bait, but even the bait didn't attract any. It's what we're doing to ourselves. We're doing to the planet. We're killing the planet, and in doing so, killing the planet that supports us and killing ourselves. I don't know how it's going to end up. I won't be there to see it. I've lived through the best 60, 70 years the planet has ever known. I'm a fortunate person, and I fear for my nephews and nieces and people that I love who are very young, because I can see a catastrophe ahead unless we change our ways. And Tom, we're not going to change our ways. We both know that. It's a done deal, in my opinion.
It seems very code red. And, I sailed across the South Pacific. When I met you in Sydney, I showed some pictures of that a couple of years ago. And we didn't see much in the way of fish at all during that whole trip. We caught a few tuna that we consumed, but that was it. It seemed like a desert out there.
A desert of plastic and pollution. And water bottles. What's this thing about water bottles? Tap water's, well, in Sydney, it's cleaner than the water in the bottles. Some of the water comes straight out of the tap and they sell it. It's ridiculous. I must be 5 years ago now, went across the Pacific, Australia, all the way across to, I think I got off the ship in Tahiti. I did it once before in 1973, and there were islands so pristine and so perfect. No one lived on them, and we stopped. We sort of island hopped across, and I did it again, same company. We stopped at one of the islands that we had been to, or I had been to so long ago, which was pristine, and I couldn't see the sand on the beach for garbage. Most of it to do with plastic. I couldn't see the sand on the beach, and no one lived there. That is what we're doing to the planet. Mm. I just can't explain. I mean, they say seeing is believing. Well, it's certainly not knowing is believing, because I really believe that everybody who can listen to the radio, read a book, or watch the computer knows what's happening. They don't care. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. Mm. And I think I'm right.
We're listening to Valerie Taylor discuss the new biographical film by National Geographic about her called Playing with Sharks, the Valerie Taylor Story, now on Disney+. Valerie, I want to ask you about your craft. You put the spear down at your prime, and you came on the scene with this camera, this desire to film before, which is, it's hard to fathom this, before anybody had ever filmed a great white shark underwater. I was thinking about this, that you came along in this time in history that was perfect for this to all happen to you. And you were at the right time, at the right place, and had talent and desire and passion, and Ron. And the combination of you two was just kind of off the charts, like this, like you can't make this stuff up. And you really kind of broke the mold.
We didn't know we were doing that. We were just trying to make a living doing what we loved. And we both were very good underwater. We could both hold our breath for a long time, both very fit and not afraid. I think that was a big thing. We didn't believe what the newspapers said about sharks, because when we were spearfishing, say I speared a good fish and a bronzy, it's like a bull shark, would come in, I found I could fight him off at least 9 times out of 10 by poking him with the spear and hitting him over the head. If he didn't go away, I'd give him the fish.
So Valerie, you know what? It really fascinates me, and I have to ask you about this. I couldn't get enough of the fact that Ron made his own housings for the cameras that you used underwater. That is so innovative, and it's just so ahead of his time. This guy who just loved to be at some tool machine carving out clear plastic, and how do you wind up the Bolex camera, and that is so ahead of its time. He must have been an amazing technician of sorts.
He was a genius, absolutely a genius. If it had an education, who knows what he would have become. But he made all our housings for all the cameras, mine and his. And when I've got arthritis, when the arthritis started to affect my hands, he made big fat handles that I could hold easily. And when new cameras came out, another housing was made.
One thing I also really enjoyed about the film, I love that the film started with you packing a bag for a trip. And and you said, well, you got to pack jammies. So one of the things you packed were your pajamas. So what else went other than the pink wetsuit? What did you bring on your trip to Fiji?
3 pairs of knickers, 3 T-shirts, and 1 jacket. And every night when I had a shower, I'd wash a pair of knickers and a T-shirt under the shower. Easy peasy. One thing I do is travel light.
Are you gonna
one pair of good shoes, 1 pair of thongs, because I have to carry it. And with your dive gear, you get very heavy.
Yeah.
You know, the dive gear was 1 wetsuit, 2 bathers, 2 skins, flippers, weighed about 5 times as much as my suitcase. Then the camera. Oh.
Incredible. So you, I'm sure you know that the great white shark population off of Cape Cod near Woods Hole is off the charts now, and it's big time. It's almost like the Jaws film that you helped with is not the fake 30-foot shark thing, but there are a lot of sharks now, and you could probably go see one pretty easily.
Well, you always could. They were always there. It was just the population wasn't so big and it wasn't noticed so much. That's all. I mean, people don't realize that these animals have always been there. They belong there. And they do a job there, whatever it may be. Nature doesn't make mistakes. Well, she has made one.
And that was?
You and me, the human race. We're destroying all her hard work as fast as we can. Even in America, where you think they'd have more sense, in Australia, all these supposedly civilized countries are not that civilized. It's not progress to destroy the planet that supports you. And that's stupidity. I've said it before, I'll say it again. And that's exactly what we are doing. And I can't say it enough. And I'm just an old lady, and who cares what I think? But I've lived long enough to learn a few lessons. And I've lived out there. I haven't gone from flash hotel to flash hotel when I travel. I've traveled on boats, fishing boats, stay in tents, sometimes no tent. We never had any money. We traveled hard. But we had a life, a real life. And I think I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. No one can have that life again. It's over. It will never happen again.
Amazing. So if there's a little girl or a little boy who happens to be listening to this or watching, and they might have a mom and dad who says, you got to go to school, you got to go to college, and then you're going to work for this company and then get a 401k plan or a retirement plan. And then the kid's like, ew, I don't like that. What would you tell a child, about following what's there,
I would tell the parents, when on my 15th birthday, my mother said, Valerie, you leave school on Monday. Just tell them you're not coming back. Then she said, you have to go out and get a job and support yourself. I was 15, just turned. I walked out the door of our state commission house. We were poor. And I could do anything I wanted. The world was mine. All I had to do was make a living. I got sacked for my first 2 jobs. And then I got a job that I was really, really good at because I can draw. I'm a painter and I can draw. And I got a job as an animator in the days when animation was done on a big cell in the original Disney fashion. And when we came back to Australia, I got a job drawing comic strips, then illustrating children's books. I did it, everything I did it because I wanted to. Same with my brothers. Our parents never said, you have to do this, you have to go to school, you have to go to college. Well, we couldn't, it would cost money. But they never pushed us anywhere. We went where we thought we should go. And my brothers and I have always done well.
Wow. That's incredible. That is, see, my mom and dad were pretty cool too. And they said, follow your dreams. And they always supported whatever I did. But when I quit my job to go climb Mount Everest 22 years ago, they were mortified. They were like, what? You quit your job? You just bought a house and you have a toddler, a little boy around. And I was like, screw it, I'm out of here, and they were mortified, but they loved it. They lived vicariously through me. They were not risk takers in their life. And I was like, I'll be miserable if I say no to this opportunity. And my kids are 20 and 23. And I think, I don't know, they're just kids. But it's like, do whatever you want. You want to be a ballet dancer? Be a ballet dancer. You want to be an underwater camera scuba diver? Do it. You want to be the best couch surfer in the world and go around the world sleeping on people's couches? Go for it. Literally, I don't care. Be happy.
Be happy. And be satisfied with your life. I think too much is expected of young people now, and they all expected to go out and make a lot of money and get married and have children. And really, to my way of thinking, to my experience, to get out and live a life, that's the way to go. I've been fortunate. My parents were poor, but they gave me a freedom that children don't seem to get anymore. Expectation is good. If I was a brilliant mathematician or something, I guess something different would have been expected. My dream was to be a dancer, but of course, polio put that to bed very smartly. And so I became a diver. That's as simple as that. A Spiro, a diver, an underwater camerawoman, a filmmaker.
Wow.
And I had a great life. And then I became a serious conservationist.
So what are you a book reader? What's your inspiration? Do you listen to music? Are you a book person, or is it your painting? What's your, outside of your, if you will, work, even though I know you love photography and it's a passion, but.
I love books. I really love books. When I was lying on my back as a little girl, books were my education. Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Treasure Island, Lorna Doone, all those incredible books, 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea. I didn't read them once, I read them over and over. It was adventure. My dream was to go down the Mississippi on a raft, just like Huck Finn did. All these things. Those authors will never know how much joy I got from reading their books.
Last thing I want to ask is, because I don't scuba dive. I did swim. I was a swimmer. I put myself through college on a swimming scholarship, but I was always afraid of the water. Yes, but I was afraid of the water when I couldn't see the bottom. So I was always like, yeah. And so it was like, I didn't have your courage. But for anyone who doesn't know, and including me in terms of scuba diving, and as you said in the film, I will be scuba diving I'll be diving when I'm in my a wheelchair. What does it feel like to go underwater with your gear on? What is the sensation? Is it beautiful?
Well, I'm sitting in our tin boat and we see a dark patch underneath the water somewhere. And you suit up, roll in, break the surface. It could be something that someplace no one's ever seen in the history of the world. Everything is new and it's changing every minute. It's full of wonder and beauty and mystery and excitement. Who's out there beyond your vision? I mean, it might only be 30 feet vision, might only be 20 feet, or if you're lucky, it can be 60 feet. You don't know what's there. You never know what's going to come bursting out of the gloom. So there's that edge of excitement. Every dive is different. It's not the same because it's a liquid world and the animals that live there, and there are many, many animals, same as there used to be on land in the forest, and they're changing. They're moving around all the time. And I often take down fish scraps, food, and I break it up in the water just to see who comes. And you'd be amazed who comes for a free feed. And what's even more amazing is who hangs around with you, hoping you do it again. They'll swim along with you. A couple of my best marine friends have been moray eels. I get along really well with eels. Feed them once, a friend for life. And they remember you from year to year. Oh. My favourite eel wasn't in the film. Her name is Honey. She lives in the Banda Sea off the island of Banda. And from year to year, I'd go and see her once a year. And she never forgot me. There is footage of her wrapping body right around me, and we're both lying on the sand together, hugging each other. And that's true. I'd have liked to have seen it in the film, but they said they couldn't put on everything. Oh. And she's a white eel with black spots, very unusual, beautiful.
Valerie, I thank you so much. And I just feel like I got a gift today to be able to take this time and hear your story.
Well, I've enjoyed talking with you, and I wish you luck.
Among the many awards and honors presented to Valerie Taylor is the Order of Australia, established by Elizabeth II, an honor that recognizes Australian citizens and other persons for achievement and meritorious service, the Australian Geographic Lifetime of Conservation Award, the Australian Cinematographers Society Hall of Fame, and in 2012, renaming of the newly declared Neptune Islands Group marine parks surrounding the Neptune Islands in South Australia to the Neptune Islands Group Ron and Valerie Taylor Marine Park. Her memoir is An Adventurous Life, published in 2019, and the recently released National Geographic film Playing with Sharks, The Valerie Taylor Story, can be seen on Disney+. Valerie, thank you for your incredible work and passion for conservation, for taking time out of your incredibly busy day. Thanks for visiting Tools for Nomads, an up-close and insightful look into the lives and habits of passionate and creatively prolific people like Valerie Taylor, who embrace and cherish the nomadic lifestyle. Tools for Nomads is brought to you by Top Drawer. At Top Drawer, nomadism isn't simply about being on the move, it's about loving and living life, where the things we carry directly impact our productivity, our well-being, and even our identity. Top Drawer combines the quality and craftsmanship of our grandparents' generation with the drive for independence, function, and stylish sustainability. It all results in a collection of tools curated from around the world that help you do your best work wherever you are. Visit topdrawershop.com or visit one of their dozen-plus meticulously outfitted shops in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Berkeley, Chicago, and Tokyo. topdrawershop.com. Thanks for visiting. I'm Tom Pollard. See you next time on Tools for Nomads.